And welcome everyone to our St. George Memory Project update on January 22nd. On behalf of Phil Liakos, the chair of the Education Committee, and myself, Meleti Pouliopoulos, we welcome you to this update. The St. George Memory Project involves library revitalization and also oral history and general history of the St. George Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Manchester, New Hampshire. Our most recent update was in November, in person, in November of 28 of 2021. And actually today I put 2021, it's 2022. We're in 2022, and we're going to be doing a series of updates. In this meeting, which is a timed presentation, it's going to be 20 minutes long. We'll be talking about the St. George Memory updates. We'll be featuring the Observer online, and we'll be discussing how you can help. The library now has an email, and it is off the domain at St. George. This is our homepage, and if you go to About Us, there is a link there now for St. George Memory. So we're on the net, and this is a landing page explaining the project, and you'd want to click on See Latest Updates. This is all off the St. George Cathedral webpage. And again, under the menu About Us. And what we've posted there are previous updates that we've been providing in the bulletin. Every month we have an update on our project. The good news is we've been cataloging our books and items online. We have over 1,000 items cataloged so far. You can go and see this online. You can see the catalog. You can set up an account if you'd like and create a wish list of books and materials that you'd like to see. You can contact us about any of those. Here is our latest update that's going to be published in the February bulletin. We're showing it to you here today. To the right is the link that is to that online library under where it says Our Books, Ecclesiastiki Historia, under there. And then we've provided the link to our email, our new email. Great project that's underway now through a book, a very rare book that was donated by George Kapatis, The Greeks of Manchester, New Hampshire, History of the Greek Colony through 1928. This was a locally produced book. It's been translated by George Trapotsis and George Kitsis, and we'll be holding an event in the springtime. Today, we're here to talk about the St. George Observer. It's the historic bulletin of the St. George Greek Orthodox Cathedral. It published from 1962 all the way through 1994. What we have done is we've cataloged all the holdings of the library. We put out a call for more materials, and then we've digitized everything. Every issue of the St. George Observer is now digitized, and it's in a searchable archive, and we're going to be showing you that today. In the future, what we'd like to do is develop an index for each issue and to document the photographs, and also use this as a resource to document our church history and our community history and our own individual history. There's so much history in these pages, and every issue has, the organizations are listed out here, and there's a lot of photos that are in there. Unfortunately, a lot of the photos, the names don't appear with the photos, so that's one of the exercises that we want to go through. Here's the board of directors in 1974. Some of you will recognize people right away. Chris Papuzzi in the first row, third or fourth in. And here, the Anagenisi Society in 1974. Again, many of you will recognize these faces. All of the church groups, all reported in through this bulletin that was mailed out. It was a physical bulletin, and it got up to many, many pages. Here's the Maids of Athena in 1967. And I don't know if Diane Spiro is on, but there she is. And all these folks, some of you may know them. They're faces that I recognize growing up. Nick Gambus to the right of this photo, and Mike Gatsis to the left, standing up. And then that picture in the background that I think we still have at the church. The St. George Observer had a lot of profiles of individuals at the church, both ones that have passed on and people that are currently working at the church. It's also a place where has little encapsulations of history. And in this particular issue in 1992, they went and made a list of all the priests that they could remember at the church. Now, we want to revisit this list, and that's one of the projects we have, just to fill in the history. As the Observer was going on and people were donating these old photos, there were people that were there that were reviewing them. And then in this photo, it's all mentioned in the caption that Nora Mufaj had gone in at that moment and helped to identify a lot of this. So here is one page opened up of one of the St. George Observers, where they're looking back many years. The picture in the lower left from the 1920s of one of the cultural organizations that's no longer around. Here, if we zoom in just to one of the pictures, picture that Bill Varkas had provided, and he's actually in this photo. This is wonderful history. You know, everyone's listed in the picture. You know, they've actually named people. The problem is that a lot of these captions have, there's photos and copies of these photos that are around, and we've lost the captions. Now, see, there's in this particular issue that we're looking at, this page, they didn't even put people's names. They just said, you know, what, no champagne, you know, and so you might recognize, you know, people in that. Beautiful articles in this about the Byzantine art of the old church when it was on Pine Street. George Demos had taken the time and wrote an article that appeared in the Union Leader and also in our bulletin, and it's there. The St. George Observer will bring back, I think, for a lot of people, a lot of memories of the community. For me, it takes me back to, you know, that period of time when I was growing up, and how many people, wonderful people there were around me, from not just from St. George, but the Greek Orthodox community of Manchester. And we were all together in the Goya and in Sunday school, some of us in Greek school, some of us in basketball and other activities. Here at the Prophet Elias, Prophetis Elias, which was right behind my home. The services, was a little chapel, and we used to have outdoor services. Some of you remember that. Unfortunately, the chapel itself fell to disrepair, and what they were saying in the late 70s is that the hippies got it. The hippies got it. All the icons were taken. This is just so special to me to see these photographs of the icons of Prophetis Elias in Manchester. If these icons turn up again, they may be somewhere. Very old and historic photos. This one done by Thomas Mavrogeorge in 1917. Now, he was the first owner, if you will, of Leslie Studios, who then sold it to the Shalog family. His name, Mavrogeorge, was shortened to George. His daughter was Betty George, and she was a famous singer. And here, this photo, if we could zoom in, you would see the instruments in the front, you know, which of course I'm tickled pink about, right? That they had these kinds of excursions. There's so many historical photos and artifacts in the library, and we're going to be cataloging everything and documenting everything and letting people know that these things are there. So that they can get to them and use them in the future. The library itself has cataloged now and digitized the entire run of the St. George Observer. We'll be sending you a link in Google Drive. This is what it will look like. You can switch from this list view to a grid view, if you will. I don't know how familiar you are, but when you get the link, you may have to make that switch. And all of the issues are dated. All the pages are dated. This one from 1962, November of 1962. And you can scroll down and, you can read, see every page, if you will. And also go and print this. You can download it and you can search it. So if you follow my mouse in the upper right of the screen, there's a button there for printing and one for downloading and another one that you can click on and search within the issue. And this is so important that we're not just putting up pictures, but we're making it a searchable archive. So I'm going to do a search on the word choir, just because I love music and I'm so interested in this history of music in the church. And I did a search on choir and there's 18 hits in this document. So the first, of course, would come up, was who was directing the choir, the very beginning. And they would click along and maybe it brings us down to the president's message where he's mentioning that they were going to bring on Mrs. Anna Tsipopoulos, Mrs. T. And then we click again and we find out she has written an article that talks about redoing the choirs and establishing a senior and a junior choir. I think I was in the junior choir at one point. I seem to remember wearing that blue robe. Beautiful, beautiful article by Anne. Also some history about her. And it's a woman who was very, very influential in my growing up as a teacher in the public schools, as part of the community and the choir director. Maybe you're interested in old ads. If you do a search on Puritan, you're probably in one of these issues, you'll probably come to an ads page. You can say, wait a minute, the Athens was on Manchester Street? No, that can't be. Now, the St. George Observer was in both Greek and in English. I want you to know that you can search in Greek as well. And all this text, you can select it and copy it and paste it in another document. So if you're doing research or, just interested in something, you want to go back to it, you can copy and paste it. So that's the link that we're going to be sending you. In fact, I'm going to, in the chat, I'm going to send you a number of links right now so you can see. And one of them is to the St. George Observer online. So the question comes up, how can I help? People, I just love hearing this. I love hearing when people say, how can I help? I love it. Well, we need help with the St. George Observer project. We want to create an index or a finder's aid and also be able to document the photographs. So when you find things like, I don't know, articles about the old art in the old church, you want to make a list of it. Okay, you can also help by starting to document your own history, your family history, or if you are part of an organization, either part of the church organization or a cultural organization, start to document it because we're going to be looking to pull in those histories into the library and make it part of the whole, right? We need help in documenting the church and community milestones. So eventually it'd be great if we could update it and produce a church book and say, here are the milestones of our cathedral updated. Here is all the organization history. We very much need a photographer, a videographer. And the reason I mention this is that I can only go so far. And there was an article that's it's going to appear in this week's National Herald newspaper out of New York on an iconographer, Zafiris Karagianidis. Karagianidis lived in Manchester. We provided pictures of two of our old icons right? So in the library, there's all these old icons and artifacts and physical objects that we want photographed professionally. So it's not, you know, Ipogyo Productions here, shaky hands, Maletti, trying to do something, that we actually have something nice. Okay, we'd like to form an event committee. We have all these events now that are lining up, building up to this grand reopening that we want to do in the springtime. We're talking about having a day where we can celebrate our church and our cultural organizations. And also a day for the Greeks of Manchester book 1928 that's going to be re-released in English, and ask George and George to talk about their findings. Now we're starting to float the idea. We want to survey the community, see what interest we have in doing a bus trip to Hellenic College, Holy Cross. This will be a tour of the campus, beginning with the chapel there, over to the Maliotti Center, over to the Archbishop Jacobus Library, and up to the Archbishop Jacobus Archive. It would be on a Saturday, and it would be open to everybody. So we're floating that idea. If you want to help, we need help. We've also spoken recently with George and Joy Bentas, the head of the Goya, about maybe doing little projects with the Goyans. And one might be taking them through the cemetery tour. Now, the Manchester Historic Association actually has a walking tour of the Greek section of the Pine Grove Cemetery. It's fascinating. If you go on that tour, you're going to find out things about Manchester, about our community and our leaders that you never knew. That the person who started the Palace Theater was Greek, who bought that whole block, they were Greek. And this is a map of Pine Grove, and the old sections are down to the lower right. We now have a lot of those records, at least the high-level records of the cemetery were provided to our library recently. We want to invite you to please reach out to us, keep in touch. This is our library email. I'm pausing the presentation at this point so you can see. If you're receiving emails from the church, you're going to see now that they all say at stgeorgenh.org. That's our website, the church website, www.stgeorgenh.org. Well, that's our library email. Look again, if you would, in the chat in this meeting. You'll see that I've sent you links. So you have a link now to the St. George Observer online. You'll have a link to the online catalog of what's being developed. And you also have a link to the St. George Memory page, where we have updates that we're providing and our email address. So that completes our presentation. What I'd like to do is ask if any of you have any questions at all. You can unmute yourself at this time. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask or any comments that they'd like to make? Okay.
Hi, I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time to put this together. I know it's a labor of love, and I'm not sure how I can help, but I think the first step is educating and sharing what you're doing. And I'll be sure to let folks know that if you have access, you need to join these calls to find out, you know, to be able to garnish all the information you're looking for. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a big help right there, is spreading the word. You know, I put in the final slides, gee, we'd really like for you to start documenting your old history. And I told my sister this the other night. She said, you know, Maletti, not everyone's like you. And it's true. Not everyone wants to be, but there might be another historian in your family. So maybe you're telling them, hey, you know, there's some really great information here. So thank you for the feedback and for spreading the word. It's wonderful. I have a couple of days a week that I'm at the library now. If you write or call and you'd like to come in, we'd love to have you to stop by and see what's there, see the work in progress, if you will. Thank you. Can everyone see those links in the chat? Do those make sense? So I know that, okay, good. Is there anyone else that would like to say anything or provide any questions or feedback at this point? Okay, folks, thanks very much. On behalf of Philiakos and myself, I want to thank you for joining our meeting. And we invite you again to, if you're just seeing this after it took place, because we'll post it out on Facebook and out on YouTube. If maybe you're from another community and you'd like to do something like this, we'd love to hear from you. You know, we really would. Thank you. Have a lovely day. Thank you.